But moving on, we will definitely like to invite one of our partners as well, Mr. Yemurai Nyoni. He is an analyst, strategic engagement and communication for Children's Investment Fund Foundation. Sir? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm just glad I got away with this without having to move. I've become dance-phobic of late. First of all, thank you very much for just the kind introduction, and thank you to all the partners that have helped put this together. I think a special thank you to the organizing team, if we could give them a hand. They've done a lot of work. And some of the partners that have supported this meeting have also contributed to the remarks. So I will read some statements that they thought would be helpful to share, just so that we are aware of the intention of some of the partners we have. My name is Yemurai Nyoni. I work for a foundation called Children's Investment Fund Foundation. I'll share a bit more about our work. But given that we're looking at UHC, let me share a few remarks from our colleagues at AMREF and Foundation Botna. So, universal health coverage can only be achieved if everyone's rights and needs are acknowledged and respected, including a strong focus on the health of girls and young women. And there can be no universal health coverage. I'm sure we heard this from the team that had the road trip. There can be no universal health coverage without inclusion of sexual reproductive health and rights. And acknowledging sexual reproductive health and rights guarantee that various aspects of what we are relating to in UHC will be covered. From our colleagues at Foundation Botna, they thought to share that as the next generation, or the current generation that are leading the transformation of our society in the digital age, adolescents and young people are the driving force of delivering that change. Through working with young people, we can accelerate the application of digital technologies, including artificial intelligence, to achieve universal health coverage by 2030. So you'll hear and understand more about what these and other partners are doing in the different skills building sessions, some of which are today, others are tomorrow. I'll take this moment to advertise our session tomorrow from 9:30 to 1 p.m. It's called How to Be a Firebrand Activist for Universal Health Coverage. We've structured it as an experience sharing platform, so we learn from each other. We already have the capacity and the power to drive change because we are multiple movements in one, and it's possible for us to collate our efforts under the banner of UHC so that we're able to leverage capacity from different sectors. So coming just to explain a bit of what and who we are as SIF. So we believe strongly in the power of youth engagement. We are a children-focused philanthropy. We focus on children and adolescents. And we have an interest in playing a catalytic role. We don't do what everyone does, but we try and find those things that no one really wants to do and see how to do them well, like work on severe acute malnutrition, deworming, etc., things that may not appear that sexy. But we also have a very strong focus on pushing or moving power into the hands of the current generation, that is adolescents and young people. We do that through tech-based platforms and user-controlled choice, HIV self-testing, self-injecting contraceptives, the entire self-care movement. So we are very keen to make sure that as a young person needing a service, you have the tools at your disposal to be able to access the facilities or services that you need. They are entry points through HIV self-testing and self-injecting contraceptives, but we're open to seeing what other platforms exist, and we're keen to partner with and learn from you how we as a funder can help in changing the game. In terms of youth engagement, we're also aware of our role and the capacity we have to try and shift some change. So we do work in enabling youth-led accountability. We do work in trying to change norms, as well as finding new approaches to youth organizing. Some of you may know of the PMNCH Adolescent and Youth Constituency. Some of you from Kenya or East Africa may have heard of G-Activate. Some of you in Tanzania, Kenya as well, and if there was no one from India, may know about an investment called FIRE. So we're trying to do multiple things at the same time to help us learn how to partner with young people more effectively. We believe in the capacity that exists at local level. In, for example, Kenya, we work alongside AMREF, Health Africa, and some work around UHC, supporting government through their presidential delivery unit, with Chatham House. We have an interest also in supporting youth to hold their governments accountable and seeing what platforms we can use to do that. I realized and was informed that because we had too much fun earlier, I would need to cut my remarks relatively short. So I want to see, how best I can add value to the conversation. So the last thing I just wanted to share was what our expectation as a funder is coming into this conference. So essentially, we are here to listen and to learn, as I shared, and to see how we can use our resources to influence a change in partnership with young leaders. We want to know how to leverage existing capacity, what exists in the SRHR space, in the NCD space, in all these acronymed spaces that we represent. What exists at country level in terms of coordination, infrastructure, advocacy, and accountability that we can all bring together to be able to drive change. We also are interested in finding out how we can generate new power. I'm sure you've seen in some of the documentation around this conference, material talking about Youth for UHC movement, etc. So how do we generate new power? How do we get people to pay attention to this agenda that we stand for? A lot of what takes place around UHC, fair and fine, it is about finances, but there are a lot of social, economic, and political issues. And citizens are at the heart of pushing and driving that change. These young citizens, we have that opportunity. So we're interested in knowing how we can work with you to be able to generate new power. So we're excited, we're keen. We don't expect to take any prolific. So we also have an exhibition booth. I'll ask Shinan if she can stand for a second. So we have an exhibition booth just outside when you turn to your right. I think it's next to the very beautiful Amref one. Ours is not so cute. And the reason for that is we are inviting youth activists. I know most times we come to conferences, we want to network, share our expertise, but you may not be able to afford to pay for a whole booth or get space. So if you want to share your material or use that booth during the duration of the conference, please see Shinan Mbao. Shinan is the chair of the G-Activate movement in Kenya, and she's in charge of the booth there, and we're really keen, to make that space as functional as possible. Again, tomorrow we have a session, but I'm sure you've seen that from your program. So that's all we have to share, and thank you very much for listening.
A very big round of applause to the gentleman.